All right, everyone, let's get started. Today, we're stepping out of the textbook and into the real world. We're going to use this beautiful beach resort, Tangjung as our laboratory. But listen, this isn't about planning your next vacation. We're here to do a deep dive business analysis. We're going to break down the competitive strategies you see at play here to really get a handle on what market power is all about. So let's jump right in.
So you look at a place like this, and what do you see? Palm trees, sand, relaxation, right? Well, I want you to put on your economist glasses. From our perspective, this isn't a peaceful getaway. It is a full-on economic battlefield. Every single business here, from that ultra-luxe villa on the cliff to the guy selling coconuts on the sand, is a player. And each one is in a constant fight. A fight for profit, for customers, for survival. Our job today is to map out this battlefield.
Okay, so here's our game plan for today. Think of this as the syllabus for our case study. First, we'll get the lay of the land, what the economy of Tangjung actually looks like. Then, we're going to zoom in on two very different businesses. We'll start with what I'm calling the Monopoly Fortress. After that, we'll look at a more familiar player, the differentiated competitor. Then, and this is crucial, we'll see what happens when those profits start attracting rivals. And finally, we'll pull it all together into a practical playbook for any manager.
All right, section 1. So the first thing we absolutely have to get straight is that competition isn't just one thing. It's not black and white. It's better to think of any market, and I mean any market, from software to sandwiches, as a spectrum, a range. On one end, you have businesses with basically zero power, and way over on the other end, you have businesses with an incredible amount of power over their market.
And this spectrum leads to two key identities, the price taker and the price maker. This is so fundamental. Let's take our coconut vendor. He's a classic price taker. Why? Because he's selling a commodity. A coconut is a coconut. If he tries to charge even a little bit more than the guy 50 feet down the beach, what happens? He sells zero, nada. He has to take whatever price the market gives him. But then you have the exclusive villa. This is a price maker. It's unique, it's one of a kind, it has real power to set its own price. Now, from a business strategy perspective, your entire job as a manager is to figure out how to drag your company from the left side of the screen to the right. Okay, let's dig into our first case study. And to really understand market power, we're going to start at the extreme end, the ideal position. We're going to analyze the undisputed king of the hill here, the mansion villa. This is what a monopoly fortress looks like in the wild. So, you all remember the textbook definition of a pure monopoly, right? A single seller, a totally unique product, and huge barriers that stop anyone else from getting in. Well, the mansion villa is about as close as you can get in the real world. And what makes it so unique? It's not just the fancy towels or the great service, it's the land it's built on. It has this exclusive clifftop location. That geography is a massive, almost literal wall. It's a barrier to entry that no competitor can ever overcome. So let's break down how this power translates into strategy. The source of its power? That unique geography. The result? They can charge an absolutely enormous price. They're not targeting just anyone. They're targeting the ultra-wealthy. And for this tiny group, the demand is what we call highly inelastic. Think about it. If you can afford $10,000 a night, are you going to blink if it's $11,000? Probably not. This changes everything. The typical rule we learn, produce where marginal revenue equals marginal cost, it kind of goes out the window here. For a place like this with massive fixed costs, the cost of one more guest is practically zero. So with demand being so insensitive to price, their best move is to just maximize total revenue. And that in turn means they can sustain these massive economic profits, not just for a quarter, but for the long, long run. Okay, so that's the fortress on the hill, an amazing position to be in. But let's be real, most of us aren't going to be running a business like that. Most of us operate in a much more crowded, much more competitive space. So now let's shift gears and look at a business model that's way more common, way more relatable, the monopolistically competitive firm. And our example is going to be this super cool Instagrammable cafe right on the beach. Right, so monopolistic competition. It sounds like a contradiction, doesn't it? But it's actually the perfect description. You have lots of firms competing, but each one has carved out its own little mini monopoly. And how do they do that? The magic word is differentiation. This cafe, what does it sell? Smoothies. You can get a smoothie anywhere, but they haven't created a monopoly on the smoothie itself. No, they've created a mini monopoly on the experience of drinking their smoothie. The cool decor, the perfect view for a photo, the whole vibe. That's their differentiation, and that is the source of their power. And because of that unique vibe, they can charge a premium. Look at this. They're selling their signature smoothie for 50,000 rupiah. Now, what does it actually cost them to make one more smoothie? You know, the fruit, the cup, the straw? It's only 15,000 rupiah. And this right here, this is the formula that matters. As long as your price is greater than your marginal cost, you are making an economic profit on every single sale. That 35,000 rupiah gap, that is the cold hard cash reward for successfully differentiating their business. But here's the catch. That success is about to cause a big problem.
Why a problem? Because in any market, profit is not quiet. It's loud. It's like a giant flashing neon sign that screams to everyone else, hey, there's money to be made over here. And that signal, well, it attracts sharks, it attracts competitors. And that changes the entire game in the long run. So let's walk through this cycle because it's almost inevitable. Step 1. Our cool bohemian cafe is making great short-run profits. Life is good. But then, step 2, someone else, let's call them the Sunset Lounge, sees that success and says, hey, I can do that. And since the barriers to opening a cafe are pretty low, they jump into the market. So what happens next? Step 3. This is critical. The original cafe's demand curve literally shifts to the left. Some of their customers are now going to the new place, so at any price, they're selling less. Their profit starts to shrink. And that leads to the final step, step 4. They can't just keep doing what they were doing. They have to change their strategy to survive. So what do? The temptation might be to start a price war, right? But that's usually a race to the bottom that kills everyone's profits. No, the smart response is non-price competition. They have to double down on what made them special in the first place. This means constant investment. It means creating new menu items, training staff to give even better service, maybe adding a new deck to enhance the ambiance. The goal is to always stay one step ahead, to keep pushing their demand curve back to the right, because they are in a constant battle against that long-run tendency for profits in this kind of market to get competed away down to zero. All right, so we've looked at the monopoly fortress on one end and the competitive cafe on the other. We've seen the dynamics at play. So what's the big takeaway here? What's the one core lesson that you, as a future business leader, need to take away from this entire analysis? It really all boils down to this one simple, powerful idea. The goal for any manager in any industry is to move their business as far away from being a price taker as possible and as close to being a price maker as they can get. That's the whole game. It's about relentlessly finding ways to differentiate, to create value that no one else can easily copy, and then building a moat around it. That's how you get control over your pricing, your profits, and ultimately your own destiny. And that brings us to the final question, the one I want you to take with you and apply to your own work, your own business ideas. Look at your market, look at your strategy, and ask yourself this honest question. Are you building a fortress with real, defensible pricing power? Or are you just building another cafe, leaving yourself wide open for the next competitor to come along and eat your lunch? The answer to that question will define your success.